You know, you could have the best camera that money can buy. You go out to an iconic location and just get the sunset of the year. And all of that is pretty much meaningless if you stuff up this one thing. And what is it we're talking about? Of course, it's composition. Composition is absolutely everything in visual art, and really it's way more important than any gear can ever be. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video today. I want to share with you some solid tips to help you with your composition, and we're going to be looking at some of my early photography. It's a little bit cringy, but looking at some of my early photography and learning from the mistakes that I made in the past to help you move forward and get better results in your photography. So let's take a look now, and go easy on me, all right? These images are not good, but let's have a look anyway. Okay, so what I'm pulling up here now is my early photography from 2011, 2012 on the coastlines of Australia, and this is where my photography journey began. Now, these images here at the time I thought were great, and I got to admit, even all these years later, I thought I had maybe a natural eye for composition. You know, some people say, oh, you've got the eye or whatever. And honestly, even teaching, I do have students that just seem to definitely have a better eye for composition and framing than others. And I thought that was me. The images we're going to look at now, I've realized, no, I actually did not have the eye whatsoever. All right. The first thing that we're going to talk about is creating a sense of depth and three-dimensionality in our images, in our compositions, by incorporating near details as well as details that are further away. And you would have heard me speak about this in many other videos before. What I'm typically referring to is what's known as the linear perspective, showcasing something large and wide in the frame and having it taper off and get narrower in order to pull the eye through the image. When you look at this photo here of the harbour, one of the things is everything is far away. There is nothing large or highly detailed in the image. The closest thing to the viewer is the grass down here on the sand, and I can't see a single blade of grass. Everything is the same size all through the frame. A similar thing is happening in this waterfall image where it's just so flat. We have the waterfall which is on that back plane, and that's all. There's nothing else. There's nothing really close to the viewer. Down the bottom right hand corner, there's a hint of a rock down there, but we're going to ignore that because that just doesn't count whatsoever. There's a lack of depth. That's one of the big issues we get with our images. We can be out in this grand vista, taking in so many various elements, a massive environment, and we want to translate that through our photography. We want to create a three-dimensional image and lead the eye through the frame. But then you get home and you just have these very flat images that didn't convey what you were seeing, what you were feeling. So to overcome this problem is by getting in close to some kind of foreground matter, or it doesn't even have to be foreground. Just give the viewer something closer within that frame as well as that subject matter far off in the distance. And by doing this, we're going to create a perception of depth. One thing that I'll often do is actually layer up as well. So I might have subject matter in the background, something within the foreground, and then something right there in the front. And the linear perspective is basically where we're taking something wide and then showing it narrow in. The classic example might be that a road shot leading towards a mountain. The road will be wide in the foreground and then flow and get narrower. The eye will just go on that visual journey, then hopping from foreground, midground, background, instead of just having that flat background. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely time and place to just have a very simple image, but often when you're in these grander environments and you are shooting wider, then definitely incorporate those layers there to help bounce the eye from the front all the way through to the background. The next thing I'm going to talk about is balance, and balance is so critical in making sure that our eye stays within the frame and is guided towards our main subject matter. When it comes to composition, composition is really so much about the alignment of shapes and tones. We're just piecing different large shapes in the frame and then preferably using the right tonality in order to just gently guide the eye to a given point. Pay attention to, within the frame, where are the big dominant shapes, and wherever they are located, do you have something on the opposite side to help counterbalance that? We can see in this image here, I've got the sunrise on the beach. I've done a slow shutter speed to slick out that water. I was quite addicted to that back then. Just slow shutter absolutely everything and pay no thought to composition. And then one of the big issues that I'm seeing with this image is on the left-hand side, we have that large rock. That's good to incorporate that. However, now the right-hand side feels vastly open because the image is heavy on the left with that stone there. Nothing on the right. So what happens? The eye gets drawn to the right-hand side, or the rock just looks distracting in general. My eye personally is getting drawn to the right because it's now overemphasized because it's a larger open space. One way to correct this would have been looking for something else to incorporate on that right-hand side. By then I would have been creating a natural balance, allowing the eye to just gently run through between those large objects. And that's something that I do time and time again, making sure that if I've got something on the left, I get something on the right. We've got a similar problem going on in this image here. I've got that stone in that lower right-hand corner. There is a bit of a counterbalance going on with the top left-hand corner, so I feel like it's not as bad as that other one. However, this image is still very empty on this left-hand portion of the ocean and just that left-hand corner in general. Not to mention the balance has been thrown off by having the horizon line way too high. Having the horizon up there has now overemphasized the lower portion, but where's the brightest part? It's up the top there in that top left-hand corner in the sky. So the eye's getting drawn up there, but because we've overbalanced that lower portion, there's a bit of a conflict. I want to look up at the bright area, but I'm being pulled down to this bottom section, which has been overemphasized. So pay attention to your horizon line. If you put the horizon in the dead center, what will happen is the eye will be inclined to either potentially begin in the sky instead of the foreground. It's happening in this, our first image here. Look where that horizon is, it's very low. What has been overemphasized in this one? It's that sky all up the top there. So a lot of my images, I like to just get the horizon off center and typically pointing downwards slightly. So I have something like maybe a 40 to 60% split, like a 40-60 ratio type thing going on. That way I'm subtly emphasizing the lower part of the frame, and that's generally where I'm beginning with my leading lines, foreground matter, or just something there to help push the eye through. So if I tilt down slightly, the eye will go there and flow in the direction that I want to go to. If you have that horizon too low, then the eye may just go straight to the sky. Most of the time up in the sky, you're not going to have anything there to push the eye towards the main subject. So now in a split second, the viewer's kind of wandering around and wondering where to go. The last point that we're going to talk about is tonality. All right, so have a look at this bad boy. The problem with this is there's not enough darkness. Photography is all about capturing light, but one of the good things you can do in your composition to help lead the eye is to utilize a lack of light in order to push the eye to those bright zones. The problem here with this processing, look at the foreground. I've brightened up those shadows so much that there's now no real dark tones. This whole image is basically a mid-tone. The eye won't naturally flow through to the background. I don't even know what I was trying to get here as the main subject. There is the hint of the lighthouse back there. Typically, you're going to want to lead the eye through the frame, and if you have slightly darker edges, that will allow the eye to not get stuck there but keep moving on. I'm not saying get it overexposed or incredibly dark. I'm just saying have the brightest area, preferably out in the distance, wherever that main subject matter will be. If you're getting light blasting all over the foreground, or you're just processing it really badly like what I did here, then why on earth would the eye want to flow beyond that? Without a doubt, composition is an ever-evolving process. It's your individual interpretation of a place, and it's incredibly subjective as well. But no doubt, some of these, concepts that I've gone over here are going to set a solid foundation for your photography. But don't get me wrong, there's always a time and place that you can completely eradicate what we've spoken about. But hopefully it's just given you some very solid food for thought in your photography. And like I said, looking back at those early images of mine, I thought at the time I was doing the right thing. And I guess have a look at your early photography too. And that can encourage you to maybe show you that, hey, you are on the right path, so don't beat yourself up. Like I said, it's a lifelong journey. It's corny, but enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. There is no end goal. when it comes to art and just creating. It's all about just enjoying that ride and trying to, you know, my goal always as a photographer was just to keep improving, and it still is to this very day. It's just, you know, I'm enjoying the images I make, but I always look at them and think, oh, it's nice, but it could be better, because what I see and experience in nature is just, I know I hold it in such high regard to get quite emotional, you know, some of these things that I've been able to see and witness over the years. So the image will never really compare or do justice to what I've experienced, but that's good because it just kind of, you know, drives me to keep trying, keep getting better. And as I said, just enjoying that whole ride along the way. So I have put together a longer masterclass on composition. This is the latest course which I've just released, and I go really in depth to some of these techniques and thought processes behind framing up the landscape, not just the grand landscape, but those smaller intimate scenes as well. I break it all down, look at lots of examples, and we go out in the field and do some shooting as well. The link for that is below. And the feedback's been great. So thank you everyone who's supported and been enjoying that course. Otherwise, if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments. I'll always get back to you, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Cheers.